1936. The European nations were divided and were preparing for war. But the war broke out within a single country, Spain. The country was deeply polarized and was divided into factions. There were the left-wing Republicans and right-wing nationalists. The Republicans headed the government, but the nationalists dominated the military. The Spanish military units were located all over the Spanish mainland. In July of 1936, the military launched a coup to topple the Republican government. In some places, the nationalists took control. In other locations, the Republicans enjoyed large support and their militias overwhelmed the military forces. The coup failed in the capital Madrid, Barcelona and Valencia. In the south, the nationalists had been able to capture only several strongpoints and were surrounded by the Republicans. But there were strong forces located in Africa. The nationalist forces were airlifted to reinforce their positions on the mainland. This allowed the nationalists to go on the offensive. The nationalist forces dispersed the weak Republican militias and occupied part of the Republican stronghold of Andalusia. From there, the nationalist forces headed north to occupy Madrid. They linked up with their northern forces. They then advanced towards Madrid from the west. By that time, the Republicans were able to rally strong forces. They had 40,000 troops against 20,000 nationalist soldiers. The nationalist offensive broke down and was halted. Italy sent its military to help the nationalists. The Italian and nationalist troops advanced and took Malaga from the Republican militia. Meanwhile, the nationalists proceeded with their efforts to capture the capital. They attempted to outflank Madrid from the north, but this did not succeed. They then attempted to cross the Jarama river and outflank the city from the south, but were stopped by the Republican forces. The nationalists launched an offensive against Madrid from the east, but the Republicans had enough forces to stop the nationalist advance. By early 1937, the nationalist offensive had been stopped by the Republicans. By that time, both sides had mobilized their supporters and their armies numbered in hundreds of thousands. The troops were deployed in the following manner. On the northern front, there were 100,000 Republican troops against the same number of nationalists. On the main front, the Republicans had a small numerical advantage. They had 235,000 troops against 200,000 nationalist soldiers. As the nationalists concentrated their efforts on the northern front, the Republicans tried to launch some offensives, but the nationalists were able to reinforce the defenses. At first, the Republicans launched a number of smaller attacks. These were defeated by the nationalists. In July, they went on a larger offensive near Madrid, but the nationalists redeployed their forces and stopped it. In August, the Republicans attacked near Zaragoza, but the nationalists reinforced the front and halted the offensive. The nationalists fought their main campaign on the northern front. As the 100,000 Republican soldiers in the north could neither be reinforced nor retreat, the nationalists decided to destroy them. However, the number of troops on this front were similar, and initially the nationalists struggled to achieve progress. The nationalists concentrated 40,000 troops against 37,000 Republican forces on the easternmost part of the front. They attacked, and during 3 months of fighting, they were able to occupy the city of Bilbao. In August, the nationalists proceeded further. By attacking from two sides, they encircled the Republican forces located south of the mountains and took them prisoner. They then advanced through the mountain passes and cut off the Republican force near the sea. The Republican forces had to surrender. The nationalists now had 90,000 troops against 45,000 Republicans. The Republicans did not have the strength to resist them. The nationalists advanced along the coast and approached Gijón. In October, the remaining Republican forces began to surrender. The nationalists occupied the key centers in the region. By that, they eliminated a third of the Republican troops. There were 450,000 nationalist troops against 300,000 Republicans. The nationalists were also strengthened by being supplied by the Axis powers. The next campaign would be fought in the northeast of Spain. Both sides deployed their main forces to this area. Both the nationalists and republicans prepared to go on the offensive, but the nationalists had the advantage. The republicans attacked and captured the town of Teruel. The nationalists redeployed their forces and counterattacked. The nationalists wanted to reach the sea and split the Republican territory into two. They deployed 160,000 troops for this task south of the Ebro River. But the Republicans chose to withdraw their troops from the front lines into the reserve, leaving only 70,000 Republican troops to oppose them. The nationalists overran the Republican forces. This broke the Republican morale in the area. The nationalists' advance continued and the Republicans deployed their reserves to stop them. But with low morale, their resistance was weakened. The Republicans fell back into the hills to improve their defensive positions, but they could not hold on to the hills. The nationalist troops broke through and reached the sea. The Republicans had to abandon their whole defensive positions in the hills. Their territory was cut into two. The nationalists used their breakthrough in the Republican lines to outflank the Republican forces defending in the north. The nationalist advance threatened the large Republican centers near the sea. The Republicans had to abandon much of their territory and retreat behind the Segre River. The nationalists decided to attack southwards towards Valencia. Their offensive in the north was slowed down by the terrain. The nationalists then advanced on the coast and were able to outflank the Republican positions. But the Republicans fell back to the hills further south, where they defended against the nationalists' attacks. With the nationalists distracted by their operations to the south, the Republicans in the north decided to launch an offensive in July and cut off the supply routes to the part of the nationalist forces advancing southwards. The Republicans concentrated 80,000 troops against 40,000 nationalist soldiers. However, the nationalist forces enjoyed the defensive advantage of the Segre and Ebro rivers. The Republicans launched the offensive over the Ebro River but were halted. The nationalists had to stop their southern offensive and redeploy part of their forces to the north. They decided to counterattack and regain the Ebro River line. It took them 3 months to push the Republican forces over the Ebro River. The nationalists decided to destroy the remaining Republican armies in the north. A large part of the Republican forces was now cut off and at risk of being eliminated. The Republicans attempted to launch a diversionary attack in the south, but this did not succeed and the nationalists proceeded with their offensive. The defending Republican forces had a strong force of 220,000 soldiers against 330,000 nationalist troops, but they were weakened by the loss of their equipment in the Battle of Ebro and did not have much land to retreat to. The nationalists launched attacks from their bridgeheads over the Segre River. They advanced and outflanked the Republican positions on the rivers. The Republicans retreated on a new defensive line deeper in their territory. But they also could not hold this line. The Republicans then fell back to a river line near Barcelona. But by that time, their morale was breaking. The nationalists occupied Barcelona without encountering resistance. The morale of the Republican forces was broken and they began a staged retreat into France. By mid-February, all of the Republican forces in the north had entered French territory. The Republicans' faith in victory was lost. The nationalists began their final offensive. The Republican forces did not resist and gave up the fight and surrendered. The nationalists occupied all the remaining Spanish territory with little resistance. By early April of 1939, the nationalist forces retook all of the Spanish territory and the Spanish Civil War was over. For the next 35 years, Spain would be under the control of the nationalist dictatorship. A big thank you for the patrons of the History channel who have stuck with this channel for a long time.